The man, however, remains entirely unfazed. A slight, knowing smirk plays on his lips as he looks down at her. He leans in slightly, his voice smooth and challenging. "Are you confident?" he asks, his words deliberate and sharp. "To cut me off?" He isn't just asking a question, he is testing her resolve, daring her to try and erase him from her life. She remains frozen for a moment, her eyes wide as she searches his face for any sign of hesitation. The scoff lingers in the air between them. Her expression is a cocktail of defensiveness and genuine shock. She is clearly caught off guard by the sheer audacity of his presence and the arrogance of his assumptions. The tension in the room is thick enough to touch. The woman, her face tightened with a mix of disbelief and annoyance, lets out an audible scoff. She stares at the man across from her, her voice dripping with skepticism. "How are you so confident that I'd even fall for you?" she demands, her brow furrowing. A small, muttered thought follows, emphasizing her irritation. "What makes you so sure?" As the silence stretches, the man makes a sudden, decisive movement. He reaches out, his hand entering the frame with a sense of purpose, a lift that suggests he is about to reveal something, or perhaps bridge the physical gap between them. "Well," he begins, his voice trailing off as he prepares to deliver his final, crushing retort. The scene shifts to a softer, almost ethereal atmosphere as the man delivers his answer. Surrounded by a halo of blue roses and shimmering light, his confidence reaches its peak. He doesn't need a complex explanation or a list of reasons. With a gaze that is both intense and magnetic, he simply says, "Isn't the answer obvious? You're looking at it." It is the ultimate statement of self-assurance, leaving her and the reader breathless. The man leans in with an insufferable level of charm, a smug grin firmly etched on his handsome face. He rests his chin thoughtfully on his hand, radiating an aura of absolute perfection, framed by blooming blue flowers and sparkling twinkle effects that seem to follow his every move. He is perfectly aware of the effect he has on others, and he wears his vanity like a badge of honor. The woman's reaction is immediate and visceral. She recoils, her face contorting into a grimace of pure exhaustion and disbelief. She raises a hand as if to shield herself from the blinding radiance of his ego, her eyes squeezed shut in a desperate attempt to ignore the sparkling twinkles that seem to physically manifest around him. The sheer audacity of his self-absorption is almost more than she can handle. "Are you actually calling yourself handsome?" she sputters, her voice rising in incredulity as she stares at him with an expression of disgust. The man simply chuckles, his confidence unshaken, as he shoots back with a playful, "Why, am I wrong?" He adds a smug little thought to himself, "Pretty sure I'm right," as the sparkles around him only intensify, further fueling her irritation. Clenching her fists in frustration, she tries to bring logic into the argument. "Nobody falls in love just for looks," she declares, her stance defensive as she tries to puncture his inflated ego. However, even in her anger, she can't quite find the words to argue the facts. A small caption notes the inconvenient truth. She doesn't deny that he's handsome. Seeing her struggle, the man decides to change tactics, though his smugness remains fully intact. He looks at her with a knowing, almost predatory softness. "If you don't like that reason," he begins, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone as he prepares to corner her with a different logic, "how about this one?" The woman can only blink in confused silence, a single question mark floating above her head as she waits for his next move. The story begins with a close-up of two speech bubbles, setting a humorous yet slightly self-deprecating tone for the encounter. The dialogue points out the irony of their reputations, labeling them as cold as stone and the impotent one. Despite the harshness of these titles, there is a sense of light-heartedness as the speaker notes that their nicknames are, quite literally, a perfect match. The perspective shifts to the two characters standing together. The woman, with her auburn hair tied back in a neat bun, seems physically shaken, indicated by the jagged bam sound effect and the vibrating lines around her head. Floating above them are the labels of their notoriety, cold as stone for her and impotent for the tall, dark-haired man. While she is visibly flustered by the bluntness of the comparison, the man remains incredibly composed, wearing a gentle, knowing smile as he gestures toward himself. The tension breaks into comedy. As the woman processes the absurdity of their situation, she can no longer maintain her cold exterior. A small, jagged speech bubble appears at the bottom of the frame with a sharp PFT, capturing the exact moment her composure cracks and a burst of involuntary laughter escapes. The woman's face comes into full view as she looks down, her eyes closed in a genuine moment of amusement. She finally speaks, her words contained in a large, round bubble. Ha ha! What terrible nicknames! The sheer ridiculousness of being paired up based on such unflattering rumors seems to have acted as an icebreaker, melting away the initial awkwardness. The sequence concludes with a beautiful, warm close-up of the woman. Her previous tension has completely vanished, replaced by a soft, radiant smile. She rests her hand near her face in a relaxed gesture, her eyes crinkling with sincere joy. It is a moment of true connection, suggesting that despite what the world calls them, they have found a unique sense of comfort in each other's company. The sequence begins with a focused close-up of the male character. His expression is calm yet deeply observant, with a slight hint of a blush on his cheek as he gazes at someone out of frame. This quiet moment of reflection captures his internal reaction to the woman's sudden change in demeanor. The narrative continues with his internal monologue appearing in a thought bubble. Having witnessed her genuine burst of amusement, he thinks to himself, "So she does know how to laugh." This realization marks a shift in his perception of her, moving past her cold-as-stone reputation to see a more human, expressive side of her personality. The focus then shifts away from the immediate conversation to the digital world. A smartphone screen displays a series of desperate text messages from an unnamed sender. The messages read, "Nayang, we're not really going to end things like this, are we?" Followed by, "I'll be waiting for your call." These texts introduce a sense of lingering conflict or a past relationship that refuses to fade away. We are then introduced to Nayang, the woman receiving the messages. She has short, dark hair and a sharp, annoyed expression. Gripping her pink foldable phone, she reaches up to ruffle the back of her hair in a gesture of pure frustration. Her furrowed brows and parted lips suggest she is exasperated by the persistent contact from the sender. The scene concludes with a close-up of Nayang holding her device. A speech bubble captures her vocalized annoyance as she mutters, "Oh, he's so clingy." This final beat emphasizes her desire to move on and her distaste for the sender's inability to accept that their situation has ended. The story begins with a glimpse into the internal world of a young woman. In a stylized, chibi-like moment of reflection, she stands alone, tapping away at her smartphone. Her expression is a mix of mischief and calculation as a thought bubble reveals her shallow but decisive assessment. Still, he's got a pretty face. The rhythmic tap-tap of her fingers on the screen signals she is deep in a digital conversation. The scene shifts to the cold reality of her text messages. The screen displays a finality that contradicts her earlier light-hearted comment. The messages read, "See you tonight. This'll be the last time," followed by the firm declaration, "It's over after tonight." It is clear she is preparing for a final encounter to end a relationship, despite acknowledging the other person's attractive appearance. The atmosphere shifts back to a more realistic art style as the woman is jolted out of her thoughts. A sharp knock sounds at her door, represented by elegant golden script. She turns her head sharply, her profile revealing a slight surprise or perhaps annoyance at being disturbed. She has a distinctive beauty mark under her left eye, and her sharp, bob-cut hair sways with the sudden movement. She calls out a brief, commanding "come in" to whoever is on the other side. The door opens to reveal her mother, who stands at the threshold of a well-furnished, modern room. Her mother's tone is gentle, but heavy with the weight of family expectations. She asks, "Are you going somewhere? It's almost dinner time." She continues, trying to entice her daughter to stay. "Your father said he'd be home early today, so don't go out and eat with us." However, the young woman is already fully dressed for her night out, wearing a sharp blazer, a floral blouse, and distinctive thigh-high stockings. She stands her ground, clutching her phone, the tool of her secret plans, and looking back at her mother with a resolved expression. She rejects the family dinner invitation without hesitation, stating firmly, "I already have plans, Mom. It's important." The importance she speaks of, however, is the secret breakup she has already set in motion via text. As the young woman attempts to leave, her mother's voice cuts through the room with a specific, probing question. "Are you meeting Yenyuk?" The camera zooms in on the daughter's face, capturing her immediate reaction. Her brows furrow slightly, and her gaze becomes sharp and guarded, revealing that this name carries a significant weight between them. Before she answers, a series of internal thoughts flash through the daughter's mind, revealing a deep-seated resentment toward her mother's conditional affection. A close-up of her eyes and jewelry emphasizes her cold focus as she thinks, "She likes Yenyuk more than me." The narrative depth increases as she reflects on their long-term relationship. Set against a dark, moody background, her internal monologue continues. "She treated me like a useless daughter all this time, but ever since I started seeing Yenyuk, her whole attitude has changed." It becomes clear that her mother's current kindness is merely a byproduct of her daughter's association with this prestigious man. The focus shifts to the mother, whose face is now illuminated with a soft, pleased glow. Adorned in a delicate pearl necklace and an elegant beige gown, she wears a satisfied, knowing smile. This expression confirms the daughter's suspicion. Her mother's warmth is entirely dependent on the status of her relationship with Yenyuk. Finally, the daughter pulls herself out of her thoughts and puts on a social mask. She looks directly at her mother and offers a bright, seemingly pleasant smile, a stark contrast to the bitter thoughts she just harbored. She confirms her mother's hopes with a simple, calculated lie. "Yeah, I'm meeting Yenyuk." Knowing that she has already texted Yenyuk to end things tonight, this smile serves as a shield, hiding her true intention to break the very bond her mother cherishes so much.